Welcome back, and like we said earlier in our intro, we're going to be, while we are commemorating the 1952 revolution, the 23rd of July revolution, this glorious revolution that united all Egyptians and was a role model to all revolutions. It was an inspiration for years and years and years until this very moment. And that was later followed by a spate of achievements by President Gamal Abdel Nasser, of course, later a few years. And not only this revolution, we're going in this segment to talk about the revolutions in the history, in the Egyptian history. The pharaohs, they were also keen about the idea of being rebelling about what they don't like, and to talk more elaborate more about revolutions in the Egyptian history, there is nobody better to talk to us about this but Mr. Bassam Shammaa, of course, the historian, author of Egyptology. Good morning, Dr. Shammaa.
Good morning to you, my dear.
A very good morning to you, sir. And as Dina said, we are going to speak about revolutions, but thousands of years ago. As far as I know about the Egyptian citizen, we are that much calm, quiet by nature, good by nature, but when it comes to our land, when it comes to our religion in specific, the case is totally different. And those are the main reasons that the Egyptians rebel go with revolutions against tyranny or injustice. Is that true or no? And if there are revolutions, when was the very first one and why?
One of the definitions of the term revolution, the etymology of this very important word in the dictionary of mankind, is the movement of an object in a complete circle around another object. Just like, for example, Earth. Earth will make a complete circle movement to, if you like, whirl or twirl around, spin around an object.
Yeah.
Same idea with the term revolution, which is referring to a character which is not satisfied by another character's movement. Ancient Egyptians were accused, and I'm repeating, accused of being a character which is lying right beside the banks of the river Nile, putting its seeds, sowing its seeds, waiting for it to germinate, and then it will eat from it, and that is the calm attitude of the ancient Egyptians. Totally, absolutely wrong. Only when we need and only when we want to, we rebel. Once again, you are a character which is like the river Nile. I describe the ancient Egyptian character as well as the modern as a Neolithic character, a character like the river Nile. The river Nile is calm to you, lots of water currents under, lots of sandbanks movement. Sandbanks appear here. On your way back from Aswan to Luxor, you find the sandbank on another place. This business of movement, interruption of the sandbanks and the changes that happens to it is vast, is big, is fast, is very, very quick and very surprising. River Nile is also long, and that's the Egyptian character. It's a long character. It's a character that goes all the way back and still going, bearing a great deal of the same character thousands of years ago, as you mentioned. The River Nile sometimes will refer to the fact that it rebels. So the River Nile can get angry and it will start its flooding. I witnessed with my own eyes storms on the River Nile during my work as a tour guide in Upper Egypt. Storms on the River Nile. You will never believe there is a storm in the River Nile. And cruisers started to be smashing each other because of the movement of the water. I saw a small deal, but I saw waves on the River Nile, something that you don't think of because the River Nile is in Egypt, is well known of its calmness. So all of this, you can put it, it can melt in a melting pot called the Egyptian character. And that will let me tell you that civilizations can be categorized. There are civilizations of tyranny. Holako, Genghis Khan, Hitler, Mussolini, those are parties and parts of our history, as our human history, as the parts of tyranny. There is lands of paradox, things which you don't understand. One of the accusations of our civilization in the ancient times was, you are the land of paradox. How come temples, gigantic statues, obelisks, pyramids, and then we don't find people, where are the houses of the people who they lived in, for example? That peasant farmer who lived on the banks of the river Nile, where is it? Where is its history? And that is studied as well. Also, there is the land of enchanting, rebellious character, a character which rebel and revolt against the system or against the regime with enchantment, with happiness. So you find them in the middle of the square. They are attacked by I don't know what, the stones and huge walls of stones and bullets, and they are singing songs with their guitar and so on. In ancient times, many people thought that because of the long span of the ruling of the king, the Egyptians would take it and say, oh, okay, he's ruling, I'm not going to rebel. And that is correct in some cases, by the way, so that we can say the truth. We are not beautifying anything. In history, we have to say the truth. Yes, we did bear 94 years of ruling of one man in ancient Egypt, King Pepi II. King Pepi II took the rule and he was 6. He died 100. Pepi II ruled Egypt and the Egyptians 94 years. The patience. The patience of the Egyptians, who can be so patient with a ruler, no matter how genius he was. If you rule for 94 years, there will be corruption, there will be boredom, there will be things, there will be weaknesses, there will be loosening in the security of the land. And that what led to the first so-called social revolution in the history of the Egyptians, probably the first organized and sometimes leading to very big disorganization in the society in the world's history. But my surprise to you today is that the social revolution after the Old Kingdom was not the first revolution in the Egyptian or the history of mankind. Salim Hassan, our genius historian and Egyptologist, wow is right, wow is right. Wow is double wow, triple wow, quadruple wow, all the wows in the world. The wows with the number of the blocks of stones of the Great Pyramid, 2.3 million. Salim Hassan, in his amazing 18, 19 huge volumes of his encyclopedia, Ancient Egyptian, which I advise everybody to buy and to put in his library, he's telling us an amazing surprise of that the people in the south in Egypt used to revolt against the people of the north. Well, that is not surprising. Okay, so people are revolting. What's the surprise? The surprise is that that happened before the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. When the nation of Egypt, as you know it, with the centralized government, with one ruler, was not there yet. So before you, Egyptian person, invented writing, invented alphabet, if you were the people who invented alphabet, because that's a debate. Before you built your pyramids, before you erected your obelisks, before you used your hieroglyphs, before you used mummification and embalming, before you studied those amazing movements in the celestial kingdom and invented medicine and invented trigonometry and sciences and engineering and architecture, all of this, and art. Before you invent any of this, you invented the idea of, I don't like your system, I'm going to rebel against you. That gives you an idea about the character. Where it happened in two places in the south. A place called Naqada, or Naggada, as we would like to call it in Upper Egypt, and a place not far away from Naqada called Ballas. Those two places has got to be placed with golden letters in our map. Got some maps for you if you would like to start showing the maps on our screen. Ballas and Naqada. Where is Naqada? Naqada is 26 kilometers north of Luxor. And few kilometers away from it is Ballas. Those two places were the places of ignition, if you like. They ignited the revolution idea. And they started to rebel against the North. Why? Because they were not happy with the North controlling them, dominating them. So they thought that was humiliating. I am not going to stand still doing nothing with you trying to dominate me and try to rule me and treat me the way you are treating. We do not like the North. We are going to rebel against the North. And they started to rebel against the North. You invented revolutions before you invented writing.
Right, but if I come in here and ask you a very important question that you might have raised while you were talking or describing the psychology of the Egyptian, why is it so distinguished or significant about the Egyptian character is that it is always misinterpreted. Whenever who comes into, sits on the chair, and he becomes a ruler of Egypt, that he forgets the history of his predecessors. Ever since the beginning of the Egyptian history, with the beginnings of the Egyptian history, Egyptians have been rebellions, like you said. No matter how the tyranny is, or how strong they are, how is it impossible that anybody would rebel against them, they rebel. And they effect revolutions, successful revolutions, and they remove them. And history keeps repeating itself. But whoever who comes and sits on the chair, they almost forget that. So if you like to elaborate on this particular distinguished element in the Egyptian history, that is a lesson that is never learned by whoever comes in.
Thank you.
Every time.
Thank you. That's the paradox that we are talking about in our characters. Our characters are so fiery, but are so, sometimes with your energy.
And so patient, by the way.
Very patient. Very patient in some
but
cases.
Once they lose their temper,
you become the giant. You sit, by the way, when you are doing this very sensitive part in our history and the character history of the Egyptians, you surprise yourself. Sometimes people surprise themselves. Sometimes you surprise yourself. You say, I did that? I did really move that cupboard? Did I move the bed from this area to this area? What is this energy? So I think to answer your question, or to comment on your comment, is that it's all part of our human energy. We have energies. Egyptians sometimes expel all this energy in one direction, and then they are energyless. And that's when they stay for a long time, when this energy is trying to rejuvenate itself. For example, in very short interval of times, you are making more than one movement. And then all of a sudden, years of calmness. One. Two, unfortunately, there are sensitive things that come with revolutions. For example, sometimes security looseness. And that happened in ancient Egypt. You will be surprised to know that after the Old Kingdom, we have a part of our history called the First Intermediate Period. This is a very polite way that the historians are describing one of what I think the most sensitive, darkest, heaviest part of our ancient Egyptian history. That is the security looseness expression that you use today, al-infilati al-amn.
Liquidity.
Liquidity.
Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. Thank you. And this looseness lasts for sometimes what? 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years or something. Like what happened in the French Revolution. It lasted for a very long time. In our case, it lasted for some time, which was very kind of new for the people, that the streets are not safe and so on. And lately. And but the ancient Egyptians had their inflat amni or looseness 120 years. So there were people who were born and died during that part. They didn't see, they didn't witness the great pyramids of Khufu and Snefru and all those guys.
You know, Mr. Bassam, I feel that it's not only about being patient or calm, it's about being able to cope. And whenever we lose this ability to cope with the surroundings, we resort to a revolution or we rebel. And unfortunately, as we can cope more and more, this is to give the authorities or the authoritarian rulers the chance to do more and to behave in an unfair way with their people, because they are going to cope, they are going to manage, it's going to go. I mean, they are that much patient, and just in a split of a second, or all of a sudden, they would see the case totally different with another completely different character. For example, I don't know if this is right or wrong, الفلاح الفصيح, or the I don't know how to translate it.
Eloquent peasant.
Eloquent peasant. Was he a rebel, or?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Absolutely. And when did he come? See, this is a very important comment that you are making, both of you now. One, you are adding to the answer of why do we rebel? I mean, why do Egyptians, or why did Egyptians rebel? Because of both of your comments plus what I mentioned. The only thing that surprised me in this business of revolutions and history of revolutions is that authorities don't read their history. Because I can assure you, if I give you 10 pages, I will put it right in front of you on the desk. And those 10 pages will include the papyrus of the eloquent peasant and the papyrus of the first intermediate period, or what I would like to call the 120 years of dark security looseness, or liquidity, as you perfectly put it. So it amazes me, because it is exactly the same thing that happens every time. For example, when Ipuwer, for example, wrote his commiserations, Marthiyat, because he is writing things which is happening in front of him when the streets became loose. He's mentioning to us, the farmers are going to do their plowing with their shields. Very important sentence. How eloquent is this? Is not even the eloquent peasant. The eloquent peasant's name is Hu in Impu. Hu in Impu. We all know the eloquent peasant, but we never knew his name. An important man like this in the history of mankind, by the way. Mankind. And when I'm saying this, this is a dangerous sentence I'm saying to me. Why? Because I'm one of the people who, when I hear a historian, a colleague of ours, sitting and talking about the Egyptian monuments is a cosmopolitan civilization. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. I'm not a chauvinist or nothing. But my Egyptian civilization was made by my Egyptian grandfathers and grandmothers. I am sharing this with the world, yes. The Egyptian civilization learned from outside, yes. Salutation to everybody who added to my civilization 5 million salutations. But at the end of the day, the Sphinx is the carving of Egyptian hands. The Sphinx is not a cosmopolitan monument. And I'm sending this message very, very harshly to our professors, our respectable professors in the universities, and our members of the Minister of Antiquities. They come up on TVs and documentaries and say, our temples is a cosmopolitan civilization. No, it's not. No, it's not, because practically it's not. If it was, I would be the first person to tell you, because I'm the first person to criticize them and to criticize some parts of our Egyptian civilization. I wrote 3 huge, bad big essays on the Facebook, the mistakes of ancient Egyptian history and ancient Egyptian civilizations. So, taking you back to this business of what happens is we don't read our history. That's what happens. Because Ipuwer is telling us what happened when the revolution led to that looseness. Well, when you make a revolution, be sure when you are preparing for it that there will be looseness afterwards. There will be security disorder in the streets. Well, don't do it, because that will spoil your revolution. That will make people who did not participate with your revolution waiting on the sofa people, as we would like to call them, the sofa party, as we would like to call them, they will tell you, oh, I want to be with you. I want to be with you guys. But later on, when you are talking to the people in the city, they will tell you, oh, but that led to a great looseness in the streets. I lost my job. I lost my, the taxi drivers lost their taxis, and so on. And they will start to be negative towards your movement. Your good movement becomes a negative movement because you did not organize what happens after the revolution. So revolutions are 2 parts. Revolutions is one part, which is you are gathering in the streets, and number 2 is the aftermath. And aftermath
Which is
is
the
more
most important.
Exactly, the aftermath is the most important.
True.
Let me tell you, for example, there was an interesting saying. He's telling things that the society is coming now to be converted upside down. The ancient Egyptian man who was writing his commiserations. He's saying, the crocodile is wearing a wig. These beautiful, very deep words of the ancient Egyptian eloquent person. This is not even, I didn't even come to the eloquent peasant. I'm talking about the eloquent peasant is another amazing genius guy.
And then, because of this, I want to have a promise that next Saturday you are going to be here to speak with us about the eloquent peasant.
Amazing guy.
Okay.
He's a
But this guy, I think that he deserves a special episode.
Yeah, I'm very, the business of him coming and then the writings that lived. The writings that lived.
Dancer.
This is the most important thing about your civilization.
Yeah.
Now, one more thing about this man who's telling us, what is this business of
We have
him?
30 seconds.
Say 30 seconds. Because I mentioned the crocodile is wearing a wig. What did he mean? Okay, wigs in ancient Egypt, two things. You are either wearing a wig because you are trying to beautify yourself, or you are in a religious aspect, like in an Israel. And referring to a crocodile, evil. Referring to a wig, beautifying. Evil is beautifying itself.
Well, Mr. Bassam Shammaa, the historian, author of Egyptology, would like to thank you very much. How can we thank you enough for your valuable input every time you come over to the Breakfast Show? And we're going to go on a short break and we'll come back to you, so you stay with us.